Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Saturday everybody. For almost a year now, we have been following issues at the local government level surrounding finances and fiscal conditions. Analysts have argued for some time that when China's economy is forced to adjust to a new growth model, as the current one is not sustainable, something we have explored in past videos, the most consequential financial transformation will be the massive pressure placed on local governments to absorb heavy adjustment costs, which will likely force these localities to sell off government assets, thus by definition reducing the local government share of asset ownership and income, a process which will have political consequences for local power. This is one of the most important China stories to follow, and we may be beginning to see this occur now. According to Yicai this week, local governments at all levels, but especially at the municipal and county level, are boosting non-tax revenue by selling assets, pointing out that local governments can keep non-tax revenue for local use, while tax revenue has to be shared with the central government. We know that local government's fiscal position has been hit hard this year by the double shock of growth slowdown, tax rebates, and crash in land use sales on the one hand, and spending obligations from zero COVID and infrastructure projects on the other. General public revenue in the first 7 months of this year was 12.5 trillion RMB, $1.8 trillion US dollars, down 9.2% from a year earlier, according to recent Ministry of Finance data. The same data shows that during this period, excluding tax rebates, tax revenue declined 13.8%, while non-tax revenue increased nearly 20% and accounted for 17.9% of total general public revenue, the third highest level since 1994. As debt levels increase, local governments are in desperate need of revenue, and if non-tax revenue like asset sales means they don't need to share it with Beijing, even better. Another Chinese financial outlet, Caixin, writes this week that in provinces including Guangxi, Fujian, Guizhou, Jiangxi, Heilongjiang, Anhui, and Yunnan, non-tax revenue accounted for more than 40% of total public revenue. The increase in non-tax revenue, they write, mainly came from the disposal of state-owned assets. Quote, in the first half of the year, income from the sale of assets, such as resettlement housing projects, increased 63% year-on-year, the Fujian Province Finance Department reported. The government of Hunan launched a special campaign to dispose of idle state-owned assets in the province. The Finance Bureau of Hengyang City, the second largest city in Hunan province, said in an article this month that the disposal of idle state assets was an important measure to ease the tight fiscal situation. End quote. Some provinces with rich energy resources have stepped up sales of mining rights to raise income too. For example, a city in Gansu province generated over 32 million RMB from selling mining rights in July and plans 15 more transactions in Q3 and Q4 of this year. Quote, I think that over the next few years this will not only be an increasingly important topic economically, but it will also be politically important. Selling off assets cannot help but reduce the political power of local governments, but they have no choice if they are expected to absorb rebalancing and insolvency costs. End quote. Meanwhile, local government costs for COVID-19 measures are piling up. One clinical laboratory and major testing service provider, Dian Diagnostics, reported accounts receivable of $1.5 billion US dollars at the end of June, a 69.9% increase from 6 months ago. The company carried out 150 million COVID tests across 30 provincial-level regions in the first half of this year. The company's recent filing shows that it had to borrow to maintain liquidity, suggesting that local governments have yet to cover the bill. Another leading testing provider, Guangzhou KingMed Diagnostics Group Co. Limited, reported a 79.9% year-on-year jump in its accounts receivables in the first half of this year to $1 billion US dollars. Accounts receivable at Da'an Gene Co. Limited swelled 115% during the same period, and Shanghai Labway Clinical Laboratory Co. surged almost 200%. Quote, Local authorities are expected to foot the bill for mandatory testing while also covering other expenses related to lockdowns. But local governments are struggling to find the cash as land sales, a primary source of revenue, slumped 31.7% year-on-year from January to July with the depressed property market. As a result, some regions have had to rely on transfer payments from Beijing and issue additional bonds to raise funds. End quote. Hey guys, if you enjoyed today's episode of China Update, don't forget to hit the like button. And as always, anyone who wants to go the extra mile and help me continue making these episodes every day, if you enjoy China Update, you like what I'm trying to do here, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. I really want this channel to be primarily supported by you guys, subscribers, rather than rely too heavily on corporate sponsorship. So this sort of support is a massive help. As always, thank you so much everybody for the ongoing support. Now, next up, let's have a quick update with the ongoing Taiwan Strait situation. On Friday, yesterday, a proposed US deal for $1.1 billion in arms sales to Taiwan was agreed to in principle. The deal still needs to go through the US Congress. According to a Pentagon Defense Security Corporation Agency spokesperson, the package includes a $655 million US radar warning system, as well as $355 million for 60 Harpoon missiles, which are used to sink ships. $85 million for surface-to-air and air-to-air missiles are also included. Unsurprisingly, Beijing is not too happy with the deal, with a Washington embassy spokesperson expressing, quote, "China will resolutely take legitimate and necessary countermeasures in light of the development of the situation," end quote, and demanded that the US revoke the deal. For its part, the US State Department responded by calling on China to, quote, "cease its military, diplomatic, and economic pressure against Taiwan," end quote, and, quote, "engage in meaningful dialogue," end quote. And last up, it's a Saturday, so let's end with something a bit light. High-speed rail. This week, provincial authorities approved a high-speed railway linking 3 provinces in the highly dynamic Yangtze River Delta, a project which has been debated for almost a decade now and hopes to advance the national goal of transforming the Yangtze River Delta into a highly interconnected powerhouse. While the construction of the lines will no doubt generate great economic benefits, some analysts are concerned that the decision to go ahead with the expensive project was primarily informed by the need to create growth rather than a sober balancing of the cost-to-benefit ratio. The project is projected to cost $26 billion US, with a 16-station high-speed, 350 kilometers per hour, railway spanning 555 kilometers, 345 miles, linking Shanghai, wealthy Jiangsu, and not-so-wealthy Anhui. Meanwhile, China plans on launching a new high-speed rail model by 2025. The so-called CR450, which boasts a high speed of 400 km per hour, 50 km per hour faster than the current fastest models in commercial use. The new models are planned to be employed on several important routes, including the near 2,000 km, 1,240 mile journey from Beijing to Hong Kong. With this upcoming model release, Chinese scientists and engineers are working on technological solutions to reduce the discomfort some passengers may feel from these high speeds. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. I will see you all on Monday.